Welcome back to Access Co-Leaders Career Conversations. I'm Eileen. I get to host this session with our incredible co-host. Welcome back from a whole mock trial season. More students in Oklahoma and our amazing guest, someone I know pretty well from previous interviews, Jeff Kenton, who is the Vice President and General Manager at Diversey. Welcome back, Jeff. Good to see you.
Glad to be here. Good to see you all.
Awesome. Jeff, can you tell us what is Diversey and what are you doing as the Vice President and General Manager there?
So Diversey, we're part of a larger company called Solenis, and I run the Diversey business, which is about a $600 million business, and we have about 650 employees. But we make janitorial, sanitation, and hygiene chemicals for hospitals, hotels, resorts, food service, buildings, and retail. So everybody's seen our products or probably used our products or been in an establishment that uses them. So yeah, it's kind of a ubiquitous product, but something that's very necessary and helps keep the world cleaner and safer.
So a couple of things here. Ever since I met Jeff and understood what his business does, I cannot walk into a bathroom and not realize, Jeff probably had his hand in on this. Jeff, now, did you wake up as a young child thinking, this is what I want to do? I want to create sanitizing equipment. Tell us, how did you get there?
Well, it's funny because, when I grew up in Southern Louisiana and I've lived in 9 different states. So, but my family had always been in the chemical business. So when I was in high school, my dad said, if you want to go to college, I'll pay for either chemical engineering or chemistry. I was like, wow. So I said, which one is easier? So he's a chemical engineer. And he said, well, chemistry. And so I became a chemist with all that career planning right there. And as I was in school, I struggled to know what to do. And then I had a professor that had been a technical chemical salesperson. He had worked for DuPont. And I ended up taking a job with a company called Hercules at the time, and then have spent my career in different chemical roles, and then got involved in distribution. And then when I was recruited for this role, it's kind of a perfect mix of chemistry and distribution. So yeah, I started with this company about 10 months ago. I love it. It's exciting. It's hard and I work a lot, but it's been
Very rewarding. I love hearing that. Now, what I was hearing is a lot of your chemical background, but then some business stuff. Can you take us back to middle school and high school and tell us a little bit about what kept you busy outside of school? And I know there's some little bit of business experience back then.
So I had a really good friend named John, and he and I started a lawn mowing business. And he was a little bit older than me, and I think I was 9 years old when we started. And so we would use our parents' lawnmowers at the time and mow grass and do things like that. And it was hot down in Southern Louisiana, as you can imagine. And then we got more and more prosperous. We ended up buying our own mowers and kind of branching out. And we named the company J&J Enterprises. By the time he was old enough to drive, we had got signs on this old dilapidated car that we would drive around. So that said J&J Enterprises. But it was a great way to understand customers, business, accountability, all those things at a young age.
What you didn't mention is the relationships that you form. Now, last time we talked, I think you and the other J in the business were able to connect. Tell us about how many years of friendship that span.
Tomorrow, 310, over 50 years. So he lives in Dallas, Texas. And he and his wife came up and visited my wife and I about in October. And I just love this guy. We still keep in touch. We laugh about a lot of things that we did and did wrong and tried to do right. And so it's amazing that you can have a friendship that can exist over 5 decades.
I love that. And I hope our students are hearing that those friendships that you form way early in life, you can still take it. And Vanessa and I were just talking earlier about this was pre-social media, right? So you're still back then, we had to work a little bit harder to maintain those friendships. We had to wait for a letter in the mail and dial in the phone numbers. So you guys have it much easier. Remember those friendships that you have in those relationships. I want to go ahead and shift it over to our students. Mallory, you get the first question. What do you have for Jeff?
I would like to know, what's the hardest part of your job?
I think the hardest part of my job right now is that I sometimes have to make decisions where I'm the only person that knows all of the facts or all of the things that went into it. So when you go to make that kind of decision, it may be hurtful or it might be difficult for other people to see or to understand, but they don't have all the facts. And for legal reasons or ethical reasons or just to protect somebody's ego, they're not going to ever have all the facts. But sometimes you have to make tough decisions that everybody doesn't know why you made that decision, and you need to build up a strong enough, credible enough bond with the people that you work with so they understand, hey, I may not know all of this, but I believe in Jeff and the decision he made.
Building that rapport and that trust. Wow, that is a challenge. It's always the people-y things that could be the best part of your day and make the business, and also can be the challenging parts. Thanks for sharing that, Jeff. Let's go over to Maddie. What do you have for Jeff?
You mentioned chemicals and stuff like that. So since you work with that kind of stuff, did you ever get like some sort of like chemical burns from that?
Any chemical what?
Chemical burns.
No, okay, chemical burns. Safety is very important to what we do, and it's we begin every meeting with safety. We talk about it because we have very large chemical facilities that could be dangerous chemicals or take dangerous chemicals and make them less dangerous. So no, so I've never personally been involved in anything like that. And we pride ourselves on the fact that, everything really revolves around being safe first. We want every employee that works at our company to go home from work the same way that they came to work. And so it's a big part of what we do every day. And I'm proud to be part of the chemical industry because we sometimes get a bad rap, but I can tell you in all the businesses I've been involved in, our commitment to safety is impressive in my opinion.
Love hearing that. Love hearing it. Kimberly, you get the next question.
So when finding people to employ, what kind of people do you usually look for?
Okay, that's a great question because I hire for culture first, and let me explain what that means. I can probably teach you chemistry, and we especially what I do. I don't do a lot of it anymore, but I can teach you about how the company works or how to sell or how to do things. But what I really want is somebody that is going to help advance our culture. And when I say that, it means if we have a culture of respect or a culture of accountability, what people are going to fit in on that. So when I interview people, it's more around questions around that and less around technical ability. Now, granted, if you're going to become an air traffic controller, you probably need to understand how to move airplanes around first. But for me, it really is around finding people that are going to advance the growth of our team.
So those soft skills that you can kind of pick up from a conversation, not just on a resume, right? So that's good. Great question, Kimberly. Ari, you're next. What do you have for Jeff?
My question is, do you ever have hard days? And if you do, how do you manage them and keep and stay motivated?
That is a wonderful question. Yes, I have hard days. And sometimes last week I particularly had one and I was just exhausted. I felt beat up. The numbers weren't good. And I came home and I have to tell you, I have a wonderful wife. Okay. And so the first thing I'd say is get a support network of people that you can talk to and rely on and trust and be vulnerable with, because those are the things when it comes out. But at the end of the day, it's not, it may be bad, but it's not, it's a day, not a long term. So try to keep it in perspective. If you don't mind, I'm going to tell a quick story because it happened last night. So my wife was a really good dancer. She was a cheerleader in college and she was very good. So about 5 years ago, she convinced me to take ballroom dancing lessons. And I've gotten better and better and better. So I've been doing it for 5 years. And so every once in a while we do metal testing. And so last night we had metal testing for the cha-cha. And we've been working on this routine for a while. And I thought I knew it. And it was about a 3.5, 4 minute routine. And in the last 10 seconds, I made a screw up and I turned the wrong direction. And when I came off the dance floor, I was so depressed. And I walked over there, I looked at my wife and I was like, I feel like a failure. And I could tell it upset her, but I went off to go to the restroom and I came back and I was washing my hands and I looked in the mirror and I go, you're not a failure because you're out there trying to dance. You made a mistake. There's a big difference between being a failure and making a mistake. And so that's what I'd say. Keep in perspective. When you have a tough day, maybe you made a mistake. We all do. It's going to happen. It'll happen today. Okay. But it's not being a failure. So
Love that, Jeff. So often we get to meet people when we talk about resilience, but these are those moments that are so practical. It's going to happen throughout the day. Mistakes get made, but we just pick up and move on. But you're not a failure because you're still moving forward. I love that, Jeff. And now we're going to all have to Google and find some YouTube clips of you doing the cha-cha.
I hope they're not out there, but I'm afraid they are. The one from my wedding is really nice. I got married about five years ago, and we did a nice dance for that. Yeah, it's a challenge for me. I tell you, it stimulates my brain, my body, everything. And then to dance with somebody that's pretty good makes it even more difficult because I don't look as good.
Awesome. Well, I'm sure she's lifting you up. Let's go ahead back to Mallory. Your next question.
I would like to ask how your business changed from like before till after COVID.
Yeah, so I was with another company, but they experienced the same things here. And I'll explain how it changed. And before COVID, we'd made a lot of investments in IT, just like we are all remote right now. And we thought, no, we weren't planning for the pandemic. We weren't that smart, but we were making those changes anyway. So I'll never forget, my wife and I had gone on vacation. We came back like March 11th. And on March 12th, 2020, we all went home that day. So we had the capability to do it. And I remember the first thing that I told my team was, if we're going to be talking remotely every day, then I want your cameras on. I don't care if the cat walks across the keyboard. I don't care if your hair looks bad. I want us to know that we're all engaged with each other. That's what I want, because we had a really strong culture. And what happened business wise was that, the world was scrambling for things like rubber gloves and masks and things like that. And the company that I worked for at the time, we sold ingredients that went into hand sanitizers. So it from overnight, the business just tripled. And everybody was trying to get their hands on the products that we had. And so we were scrambling the world remotely to try and do it. And it's interesting because as the pandemic eased and things went back to the new normal, all this inventory was there. So then we were stuck with years worth of product that we had to try and get rid of. And it was like a super challenge. So we went from the highest at times to the lowest at times. And all these things happened. And there were a couple of things like when I came out of there, I thought, man, this remote work is really great. We can all be flexible and do that. And then after a time period, I thought, I miss being around my colleagues. I miss being in the office. So I think some benefit in between, but it was just a complete roller coaster because, to be honest, none of us really knew what we were doing. And we were all trying to make it work every day. And so, but that's a great question. I reflect on it a lot because not that I ever want to be in that situation again. I don't. But I really want to be prepared for when things just go crazy. What's happening in the Middle East right now impacts our ability to ship products globally. It impacts our ability to get raw materials from Israel and from other countries that we buy from. So it's interesting that, we see these events that seem like they're so far away, but we have to be prepared for it. So you can never really plan out to that degree, but what you can plan for is, how are you going to be flexible? How are you going to pivot? How are you going to respond when a situation changes?
That's so good, Jeff. I mean, and I hope our students are also picking up that you may come across these headlines in, breaking news, but how is that truly impacting you? And if you don't catch it now, maybe years from now, you look back. You guys are in the 10th, 11th grade, so you were still in elementary school, maybe middle school when the pandemic started, but you're going to remember that when you start writing papers for your undergrad and, you start telling your own stories. So all of this stuff and having to pivot, and as Jeff said, being flexible, those things are important. Thank you for highlighting that, Jeff. Let's go back to Maddie. What's your next question for Jeff?
Now there is like an AI uprising, so I want to know if that is somehow impacting your company and if it is like going to probably take some jobs.
Yeah, let me talk about AI in general first, and then we'll talk about the impact on jobs. And I spend a lot of time on it, and we do a lot. The business that I run is very complicated. We have thousands of customers. We have thousands of products, and they can buy in all different kind of combinations or permutations. So you literally have hundreds and thousands, millions of lines of transactional data that happens every month. And when you think about that, it's difficult for a human being to refine and look at that kind of data on a macro scale. So using AI to help us plan how to sell, where to sell, and where we're losing business, because we work through distributors and so forth. Sometimes it takes months before we even realize that we've lost something. So AI has been a great tool there. I personally use it a lot to help with business planning, email writing, proposals, things like that. When I want to streamline my communication and so forth, I find it to be very effective in those kinds of ways. We have very strict guidelines around what kind of information we can put on it because it can be sensitive and we never know when that information can get out there. But I use it every day, and then we use it for business purposes, like I was saying. In the business that I'm in, I can't. I'm sure there will be some areas that maybe it could remove a person or people, but I actually think it's going to expand things because it can generate all that data and it can put some conclusions together, but we have to go verify that information. And then we have to go test it to see if it's right. If it tells me that, I'm losing business at these retail establishments, and then I go there and I'm not, then AI's predictive analytic capability didn't really work, but it still is going to take a human being to make that reference and put it together. So I'm not as concerned about AI taking jobs away as I am it opening new avenues and new possibilities for people to look at things differently and to respond differently to what's going on. So I'm a fan. I like it, and I would encourage you all to. And you're probably much further along than I am. So yeah, keep doing what you're doing.
I'll tell you, Jeff, every single session we have, there's going to be a discussion about AI, and we appreciate that. It's never use it. It's always how can we use it to better what we're already doing. So thank you for that encouragement. Let's hop over to Cooper. What's your first question for Jeff?
So it's kind of a big question. I'd like to know, how do tariffs impact your business?
Okay, yeah. Huge. Okay, so tariffs are tough because we buy a lot of raw materials globally, and then we have to pass these tariffs along. At the baseline level, a tariff is a tax, basically. Okay, and we all pay taxes. I don't know if they have sales tax in Oklahoma. We don't have it in Delaware, but you go to spend something and you have to pay a tax. You make money at a job, they're going to pay a tax on your income that you make. When you in a few years buy some property, you're going to pay taxes on that property. So a tariff is a tax, and the government, whomever we elect, can control how taxes move, how tariffs move, and what happens. And so my opinion is fairly agnostic about what they are. My feeling is, what can we do to minimize the impact, and what can we do to pass it along? Because at the end of the day, it's gonna move on if we have tariffs that impact us and all the business. And so what does that do? You buy something, I buy something from China and I put it into ingredients. It's used at a restaurant, and that you go to that restaurant and now the price of the hamburger is more expensive. And then maybe after a while, you stop going to that restaurant because you don't want to put it there. So it comes back. Or you say, you know what? I don't like that all these costs are coming to me. I'm going to vote differently the next time that I go to the polls, or I'm going to do something differently about what we can do. The macroeconomic factors that go into it are huge. But at the end of the day, we all have a personal decision on what we want to do and how we want to spend our money, because that's what it comes down to. So, yeah, but they impact me, man. I can't tell you how much time I spend on tariffs and taxes and all kind of financial things.
Thank you for that explanation. I feel like it helps me even understand that. All right.
I had a conversation with an executive at a company that you would all know that I won't say the name of. And we were talking about taxes, and I went into, or tariffs, and I went into the whole taxation thing. And I said, our company was kind of built on this idea of taxation without representation and all these kind of things. So I said, the people are going to change what we do and how we do things. So it's up to us to be vocal, to understand it, and to really look at, how does a tariff from China impact my life as a person that has a phone or whatever that's going on. It will impact all of us, and certainly businesses. And we really look at it deep.
That's so good. You really brought us back 250 years, Jeff. Thank you. All right. Ari, you get the next question.
My next question is, how do you balance work life and home life at the same time?
Wow, that is a hard one. I'm extremely organized, maybe almost to a fault. I treasure my mornings, so I get up really early, sometimes usually 4:30, 5 o'clock, something like that. And I use that time to do a little meditation. I get myself cleaned up. I have a wonderful wife who likes to get up with me. We'll usually do something together. This morning we prayed, and then we'll have coffee or something like that. So I'm really blessed in that. I like to get to the office before the other people get here, because I can get things done. And so it allows me to kind of level set for the day, make sure that I have my goals aligned and so forth. And then I'm very organized during the day on, into how I spend my time every day. And then I typically target a closing time that's good. And when I leave. Now, I may check my phone for some emails, but it's usually text from my friends or family or things like that. But I really try to put boundaries around what I'm going to do. When I'm at work, I work hard. I stay focused. I'm driven on what I need to do. And when I'm with my family, I try to remove the distractions so that I can be fully present with the people that I love and that I want to be around.
That's so good. And while you were describing your day, I will share with the students that I'm on the receiving end of Jeff's organization. He's just one of those people that are so good about that. It's because he has those systems and that discipline. So keep that in mind, guys. When you start building your own careers, there is somebody on the other end that will remember those things. So thanks to you, Jeff, on a personal note. All right, Cooper, we're over to you. What's your first question for Jeff?
I know companies usually, there's a lot of unexpected things that always happen, some things you can't prepare for. So how do you do your best to be dealing with stuff you usually can't prepare for, like the tariffs, for example?
Yeah. Yeah, that is most of my day, Cooper. I think that's a great question because it's if everything that we encounter were predictable, then you maybe AI would work for everything at that point. But it's not. And so I think that the biggest thing is to train yourself to think differently. I told you that I had a degree in chemistry, but I had the opportunity to go to a small liberal arts college, and I studied aesthetics, philosophy, communications, business, religion, all kinds of things. And I think that sort of varied background and perspective really helps me because I try to look at business issues differently and from different angles and from how they impact the customer, the consumer, the suppliers that we deal with. So I think that this idea of being open-minded and then training yourself in a system of how am I going to respond to things. I had a meeting about another well-known customer I won't tell the name of yesterday that we're about to do a huge deal with, multi-million dollar. And at the 11th hour, they came back and basically said for a couple of different reasons that I didn't think were valid, that they weren't going to do the deal with us. And I was upset, I was disgusted, I was frustrated, all those kinds of things. And then I kind of sat back, I breathed a little. I'm a big believer in mindfulness and kind of recentering yourself and getting back there. And I thought, okay, let me see it from their angle. Let me see it from my angle again. And where are we missing in between? And then instead of saying, okay, you're right, we're not going to do the deal. What can we do? What can we do here? What can we do there? And put together a plan so that we don't stop trying to do things. So I think it's really trying to take in a holistic perspective, giving yourself a decision process that you're comfortable with and that it meets with your ethics, your morals and everything else, and then bringing that back to continuing to move forward even when you're hit with resistance or things that are different.
That's such a thorough response, Jeff, and all the strategy that goes behind it. Great question, Cooper. Cooper, do you have a follow-on question for
I know you talked a bit about AI and about it replacing people, but do you encourage your employees to be using AI, or do you think that it's not reliable enough to be used as a helper yet?
So I 100% encourage all of my employees to use AI personally and professionally in their day-to-day job and what they do. And then I can tell you that I literally invest millions of dollars a year in IT initiatives, marketing initiatives that are AI driven. They may be empowered in a different platform or something, but yeah, I'm putting my money where my mouth is on this one. I just think that it gives us capabilities that and speed and velocity that we don't currently have. I'm a big believer in its ability to help us identify and address problems. And at some point, it's going to become basically table stakes. Maybe that word doesn't transfer, but it's going to be the cost of doing business, meaning that our competitors are doing it, our customers are doing it, our future employees are using it. So all these things, if we're not relevant, if we're not staying current with what's going on, then by default we're going to be behind in a couple of years. So yeah, big.
So good. Now, Cooper, why was that question important to you to dive deeper a little bit in AI?
Well, I've been starting to use AI a lot more in my daily life. My robotics group, we've started to actually use AI whenever getting ideas and stuff. We don't necessarily use the exact idea, but it also helps us get our brains running and start for where we design a robot. It never gives us a perfect design, but it sometimes makes us think, hey, this part of the robot may actually work well with what we have to do. I also use it in my daily life whenever having to come up with ideas for like maybe an essay in my reading class.
That's awesome, Cooper. Now, I don't have a note here, but I do see that you're in the 10th grade, that you do participate in chess and robotics. So that's why I felt like Jeff's response about some of the strategy closing deals probably, sprung a little thoughts there for you. Do you have any ideas, Cooper, what you want to do after high school?
Well, I have two plans. I first want to try and get into law school, but if that fails, I do want to go into engineering. So
Come
I
on. That's excellent. Jeff, do you have any words of encouragement or wisdom for somebody like Cooper who has that technical mind, but also an interest in going into legal? Well, I mean, that's a good blend, both sides of the brain.
Yeah, that's a great blend. And, I think this kind of diverse approach to things is a great way to look at it because, I got a technical degree, not because I loved technology, it was because, it was available. But what I really learned was it's just how do I interact with people? How do I apply this to put myself in a position where I can do business? I can have more legal interaction. We have a lawyer on our team. She's fantastic, and I'm so impressed every time I work with her. And I encourage her to be more involved in the business because the legal aspect. So there's no reason you can't combine legal and engineering together as well, because anything that is about building or doing something is going to have legal issues with it. So those are two lofty, great potential professions. So congrats.
That's awesome. Cooper, how does it make you feel? Do you feel like you have a little bit more clarity heading down those two different paths that you described?
yes, I do.
Awesome, awesome. Well, it's good to have you back on the show. Mallory, coming to you. Mallory's one of our 11th graders. She is also very busy serving in the church, hanging out with friends, being a little influencer with makeup and all. But what she does know is that she shared some time with her aunt that works at a hospital and has decided that she wants to look into being a prenatal nurse. Mallory, why don't you share with Jeff a little bit about what you plan on doing on the last half of your high school career and you step into what's next?
Yeah, so I do want to serve as a prenatal nurse. I also am looking into doing like some stuff with sonography, like being a sonographer, a nurse in that aspect. Yeah, I've just always been really like I loved helping people. I always love helping people. And yeah, that's what I really want to do.
So I love that. I love that because I I stopped to get a bagel this morning. It was like 5:30, and I was in the bagel shop. Nobody's there, and then a state policeman came in. And I was standing there, we were both waiting, and I looked at him. I said, you you probably have the most important job and one of the hardest jobs in the world. And I said, I'm impressed. Thank you for what you do. And then as I was turning around, I go, you probably have the second most important job. I said, I think nurses have the hardest job and the most important job. Okay, I'll give you that. And so I thought that probably wasn't smart telling that to a state trooper. But anyway, I left. But I think being a nurse is a noble calling because it's hard and my light went out. Sorry. It's hard. It's challenging. You're seeing people at their worst. If you can gain those skills and maintain that compassion that I can tell, I can see, I can hear in your voice, that compassion that you have, it's a noble calling. So anybody that chooses to go into that kind of profession, I would encourage you to do so for humanity, for all of us. So thank you.
Love that, Jeff. And our producer brought up, even just at your age, being in high school, you don't want to be a nurse. You specifically mentioned you want to serve as a nurse. And that difference and understanding even within you is huge, even starting this early. Mallory, do you have any follow-up questions for Jeff?
No, I think he answered everything. I really love all his points that he's made and just even his comments about like failure. I feel like I could really take that into my own life and apply it into some certain aspects because, trying to be a nurse, trying to get into schools, I'm gonna experience a bunch of failure probably. And I just like what he said about, just trying again and just not letting it hold you from doing what you really want to do.
That's
Amen.
right. All of that, Jeff, just from your cha-cha experience. So thank you for sharing it. Maddie, we're coming to you. Share with Jeff a little bit of what you want to do. Now, I know that you're also in the 10th grade, so you're almost halfway through high school, and that you're kind of on the technical side too, right? You enjoy gaming. So what plans do you have?
I plan on becoming a court reporter after high school. I just liked the way that the keyboard has looked too, so that's probably one of the reasons why I wanted to do that. But I also kind of liked how it's kind of like this like own little language that you kind of you and a few other people around you know that like it's like takes like 2 years to learn. So
Jeff, I don't know if you heard that correctly. Maddie, obviously we shared earlier that this whole cohort of students participate in mock trial, but also Maddie shared that she wants to go and be a court reporter.
Wow. So I don't know anything about that, but I know it's important. So I think if that follow your dreams. I mean that sounds like exciting to be in that kind of environment. And again, every person that's talked about a job is important. Okay. And so it's really, that's impressive to me. And that gives me hope for the future because those are, those are jobs that are tough and they, they can be teased, but you can't make a mistake. You got, it's the kind of thing where you got to be good at what you do. So yeah, more power to you, Maddie. Keep faith on that.
So, Jeff, I know that you shared when you were younger, you started a business and you started to pick up all the different things like, oh, you were using your parents' equipment and now we've got to upgrade that and doing some marketing. So, somebody like Maddie who knows that she wants to do something pretty technical, which requires also kind of understanding a different language, right? Like they're not
Yeah.
just taking very specific notes, they have their own language. Can you give some advice or wisdom on the business side of taking a skill like that may be translatable or even expand her thoughts?
Yeah. So I tell people when they're advancing in their career that what you're really trying to do is develop certain skill sets that you can apply to other parts or other businesses or anything else. Because I've changed businesses and jobs and careers, but once you establish a skill set, so for Maddie, for example, if you generate this skill set that you learn this language and physically know how to do this language, what that tells a potential employer is, okay, she's smart, she has the ability to learn, and she has the ability to transfer that skill somewhere else. So they may need you to come in and do some coding or go through some analysis, and it'll be like she's got the skill set to do that. So don't worry about the job or the place or anything as much as the skill set you can develop. And maybe that skill set is leadership, or maybe it's planning or things like that. So, but once you get those skills, that's how I want you to build out your CV, your resume. I want it to be set up with skills that you can transfer because, I was talking about hiring a guy this morning and the HR person I was working with said, well, he doesn't really have the experience that we need in this certain job. And I said, but he's got the skills and he advances the culture. So, that's the kind of person that I want to bring along to our team. Not someone that necessarily has 15 years doing that. Because you know what? They might have 15 years of bad habits. I don't know, but they could. So I do think that for me, it's really about skill set.
Skill sets and just really getting to know that person. And thank you, Jeff, for sharing that. Kimberly, we're coming over to you. You're in the 10th grade. You're almost halfway through high school. You are involved in the mock trial team. Can you share with Jeff a little bit what your interests are and what you kind of want, what kind of path you want to start heading towards?
So I have a lot of interest. I feel like I've never been certain on something that I like really want to do. I'm honestly just gonna be driven to wherever I go is where I go. I had interest in law, business, marketing, everything. And I think I'm just gonna keep living life and see where it takes me really.
Listen, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't hate it. It sometimes shocks me when I meet somebody that's 15 years old, and I say, "What do you want to do with the rest of your life?" And then they're like, "I want to be an attorney at a mid-level firm in Manhattan," because you don't know. You're 15 years old, or whatever the time is. So it's like you don't know what you want to do. And so, listen, if you had asked me 3 years ago, "Hey Jeff, you want to be in the janitorial, sanitation, exciting world of that," I would have laughed my way out of the room. I love what I do now. I love it. I love coming to work. So don't beat yourself up on that. Go back to what it is. What can I learn? What can I learn that I can apply? And then how can I look at different industries or opportunities? Because the nicest thing about that is if you build this up and then you see a job that's in the cosmetics industry and you say, you know what, I think that would be an interesting industry that would be fun to be in. Or I see something that's in automotive. I have developed skills. I have developed abilities to do things in either of those industries. So listen, I was my senior year of college, struggling. My dad, who was a chemical engineer, was ready to beat me. And instead, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so, but it's turned into just a wonderful career with all kinds of opportunities. And I've changed jobs. I've changed directions. Like I said, I've lived in 9 different states. It's just, there are so many opportunities, so many possibilities. Keeping your mind open to that and working on yourself and working on your skills, you got to make.
Super encouraging. Kimberly, how does that make you feel that somebody with a professional is saying, hey, it's okay. Keep learning.
Yeah, it makes me feel really good because like I understand that people who are successful with what they're doing now, they didn't always know what they wanted to do. And also, like, again, I really loved what he said about failure as well, because I know failure is going to happen, mistakes are going to happen, and I'm ready for it. I'm just ready to take whatever's going to come, because overall, I know that if I'm going to find something I love and I'm going to keep going with it.
Sounds
I
like
can
you're gonna
tell you.
crush it.
Yeah, she is. And we could do a whole show, on failure. We should do that sometime, okay? Because I mean, I got a list. Of them. All right, and you learn more from your failures than from your successes. Okay, and it's like I hate that. I hate that that's the outcome, but that is the truth. And so I think if you think about that, when you have a failure, if we lose a big deal or something goes wrong, we'll have a postmortem internally. And I'll start off the meeting the same way. And I'll say, listen, we're not here to judge anybody. We're not here to blame anybody. It's not about, we can't change the past. But what we can do is understand what happened. And then we can look at, are there any things we could have done differently? And those opportunities, they become the top of the next deal that we work on. So failure is a good thing. I hate saying that because it hurts, okay? But it is a good.
Thank you, Jeff. And you said something. You guys in your business do a postmortem. So for our students, just so you know, in the military, we call it an after action. So I'm sure with Coach Cliff in your mock trial days, after each of the sessions and the competitions, you guys came back together and said, what did we do well? How can we do better the next time? So I hope you caught that. We're going to move over to you, Ari. Jeff, so what I do know about Ari is that she's the oldest of a bunch of siblings. So she's super responsible. And that she has this creative streak about her. So, Ari, why don't you share with Jeff a little bit about what you enjoy doing? You're in the 10th grade, so you still have some time to decide as well. But I'm sure, Jeff, what your plans are after high school.
For me, I've had it decided since I was like 8 years old. I want to be an architect, and I also want to like focus in interior designing and hopefully one day start my own company.
Wow. And now what drives you or what drove you to want to be an architect, interior design? What excites you about that passion?
Well, when I was younger, my mom would tell stories about like how she would make these designs and build them like from scratch using like the materials she had to use in school. And I loved building things and taking things apart. So I was like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I want to be an architect like how my mom wanted to be one. And I also love like the creative design of it. And I really want to like help people build their own dream home, decorate it the way they want to and everything.
So you're a creator, and I love this because I've been thinking lately about my passions and things like that. And Aileen knows this, but I'm a part-time preacher, and so but one of my favorite things to do is to create sermons. And it's because I love studying the Bible. I love applying it to modern day. I love talking about being a sinner, not somebody that's good, that we're all trying to get to where we're going. But the idea of creation is what I just enjoy the most. And it's kind of putting something together. And I know at work, when I'm most in flow, when I'm most focused, it's when I'm creating something. We're working on a new structure or a new strategy or a new business plan. And so it's like I love that idea of creating. So whether it's architecture, interior design, baking cakes, whatever it turns out to be, I can see you're a creator. And so don't lose that passion for creation. And I separate creation from creativity. They're very close, but you can be creative and not create. Okay. But so I encourage you to take the idea and put it into action. That's creation. So I like it.
That's awesome. And so for our listeners, you can't see, but Ari has this giant smile on her face. Ari, how does that make you feel that Jeff is saying, go for it? You got this.
It's really motivating because at times I lose motivation and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to like make it out and like actually like become an architect. But it's nice hearing encouraging words to like not give up and to not lose that creative spark and to actually put it in action.
I love it.
You're making an impact on these students, Jeff. Speaking of that, Cooper, we're coming to you. What did you pick up in our conversation with Jeff this morning?
I learned a bit about AI and how big industries are using it, which I do find useful. And I did learn a bit about how to prepare for stuff you can't really prepare for.
That's good. That's good. You were paying attention. Thanks, Cooper. Mallory, what did you pick up today? What resonated with you in our conversation with Jeff?
I think I would just say the whole like failure thing again. I think I don't know, it just like it's kind of like it's really nice like hearing it from somebody that's like way higher than you and like you think like all these like big important people like they're like perfect, they don't fail, they don't have any of these flaws, but then just like hearing it and just like him being vulnerable about some of the certain things that he's like been through in his life and some of the hardships he's had with like the tariffs and just all the new things. It's very nice for like I think just like kids like us that go through failure like almost every day, hearing that we're not alone, I guess.
You're
And,
not
and I,
alone. Yeah.
I love the word that you just used, vulnerable, because when we're vulnerable with people that we trust, it helps us to grow. And it's so important. I think as a leader, somebody asked me the other day, what's your secret sauce? And I said, I think it's that I'm transparent and I'm vulnerable. I'll let you know. And so you talk about failures and things that happen. About 11 years ago or so, I got divorced, and that's a public declaration of failure, because you made this commitment forever, and it was devastating. It was hard, and then I've gone through it. And it was tough, but I've met the most wonderful person, my soulmate, that I love dearly. We've been married 5 years, and so out of failure can come great success. And whether it's personal or professional or whatever, I just encourage you to shake it off and learn from it and move forward with a smile on your face, because you can do it.
That's so excellent, Jeff. Thank you, Jeff. We're coming to you, Maddie. Maddie, what did you hear today that changed how you think about getting from where you are now with just having an interest of being a court reporter to where you want to go?
I would say that like he says, like not to give up, and there's always going to be mistakes. So I think that definitely helped me, but I think that I'm going to probably stick with this too, but it definitely is eye-opening to hear someone say like you're going to make mistakes and you're probably going to fail sometimes, but you can always get back on your feet.
That's right. Get back on your feet and back to typing in that court reporter language. Kimberly, over to you. What stood out to you the most in our conversation with Jeff?
Something that stood out to me today was that I really loved how we talked about kind of how some negative things are kind of more helpful than the good things. Like, for example, the failure. Sometimes failure can help you, and I feel like there's some things he said that really were motivational to not only looking at what like I want to be specifically, but like maybe like years from now when I'm successful, like how I can use that to help me even then, because I'm not just going to need it now, I'm going to need it later on too.
Awesome. Ari, I'm coming to you. It's a little bit of a trickier question. What's one thing you're thinking differently about after today's session?
Well, like when I used to make a mistake, I was like, oh, well, that was it. I'm not doing this ever again. It was horrible. But what he said about mistakes, how like even though like you might have failed, it doesn't mean it doesn't mean it's over. It just means that you made a mistake and you can try again and, do better. So that's what I got from this conversation, was that failure doesn't mean like the end of like a story.
I love it. Jeff, man, that cha-cha story.
Yeah. No, and it's funny because the whole ballroom dancing phenomenon is not something that I wanted to do or particularly went into with open arms. But I did it because I love my wife and I knew that it was important to her and I wanted to try something together. It is so hard for me. I can't tell you. It's the one we try to do it twice a week, but it's the one time that I feel like I'm struggling every time, but I keep going back. Okay. I keep going back. And so when you try to learn a new language or how to be a court reporter or how to use AI to build scaffolding to help drive your robotics, it's gonna be frustrating. It's gonna be hard, and there's gonna be a million times that you want to give up. But I promise you, if you can continue to persevere and continue to try and look for the good things that come from the struggle that you're going through, and then celebrate the struggle sometimes. We've turned in our Thursday dance class into like date night. So I know if I can just get through this class, that on the other side of that, I'll be able to spend some time with my wife and have a great time. And so it's like, that gives me something to look forward to. There's things that are challenges, but I can tell by the demeanor of the group that I'm seeing and hearing today, you guys have a huge potential, great future, and I'm just excited to share 60 minutes with you.
I love that. Yes, there is huge potential here. And speaking of that, I'd like to invite our site liaison, Coach Clifford Heckert. Coach Cliff, what does this mean to you? What does having these kinds of career conversations, guests like Jeff, mean to you as an educator?
Where application actually meets what we're teaching. And, I ask my kids this question all the time. I said, how you want to make God laugh? Tell them your plans. And, it's just a simple way of saying that, things are going to change. But like Jeff said, develop the skill set and you can do whatever you want to do. And I was really impressed the fact that Jeff went to school for a hard science, but stepped out of that and started taking classical stuff too. And I've always been impressed with people that can have both sides of their brains and do that. And one of the things I was interested in is, has he seen people that have been successful, regardless of the industry, have the ability to do that? I mean, because some can just do the hard science and that's it. Like myself, I went to law school. I could do, some of the softer sciences, but the hard science just wasn't my path. Have you seen a trend where somebody like you that can do both is really the path to success?
I think I love the concept because I think about it a lot. And this idea of of stretching yourself and looking beyond what you know you're good at. Okay, I know I'm good at certain things, but I'm not good at dancing, and I'm not good at some other things. But I think what I learned in my education. So for the students on the panel, I learned to gain a love for reading and for writing. And I think that in business or in anything, it really comes down to communication. And the accountability for communication falls on the person that's trying to communicate, not the person that's trying to receive. So if I do something great and then you go, I don't know what he meant, then that's my fault. Okay. And so it really comes down to, so I think this idea of understanding vocabulary, understanding words, understanding reading, and then being able to put your thoughts together to communicate that back is really important. So to me, that's where those soft skills came in, because when I go into a new business problem, it could be a legal issue about, we were looking at leases and companies that go bankrupt and whether we can protect ourselves and stuff. I have no knowledge of that, but I like to read. I like to study things. I like to go deep on what I'm trying to learn. And so I think in that way, it really makes it powerful. So yeah, it's nice to have a discipline, but I'll be honest. The last time I used chemistry, well, I did a crossword puzzle and there was something about arsenic in there. And so that paid off really well. My dad would be pleased that he paid for 4 years for that. So yeah, but it's been a while. So yeah, but it really is sort of the base. You're a coach, it's the basics. It's the blocking, the tackling, all those things are what's going to make your team, your body team good. And so, yeah, I would say, get back to basics and embrace them.
Jeff, you are a leader about the people, about the basics, valuing mistakes, not failures. Thank you so much for that. I just know that being the vice president and general manager at Diversity is such a right fit for you, especially in this season. What is the website for Diversity right now?
So the best thing to do would be go to Solenis, SOLENIS.com. Then you can click on the Diversity logo and then boom. And if you just type in Diversity, you'll find us. We're a big company and either one works. Go to AI, all of you guys.
There you go. Thanks. So practical. Jeff, thank you so much for being with us and our students for More High School, our co-hosts with their site liaison, their instructor, their mock trial coach, Cliff Heckert, our students, including Maddie, Mallory, Kimberly, Ari, and Cooper. You've been listening to Access Co-Leaders, Career Conversations. We'll see you next time.